In the mid-70s, much of Japan became obsessed with the occult and the paranormal because of what was shown on TV. Many programs featured all kinds of haunted and paranormal acts and invited psychics to be on their shows. When psychic Uri Geller appeared and bent spoons, the kids were all trying to do the same thing the next day. It was during this time that spiritualism exploded inside school walls, and this was the beginning of Kokkuri-san. It became so popular that it got banned in all schools across the nation. So what is Kokkuri-san? In this video, I'm going to explain to you when it all began, how to play it, actual stories from people who have done it, and possible explanations behind this phenomenon. How do you play? First, grab a white sheet of paper and write down the 50 alphabets in hiragana, the numbers 0 to 9, a yes and a no, and a red torii gate. A torii gate is a Shinto gateway, and as you can see in the image, I'm sure all of you have seen it either in person or in various photos of Japan. Finally, you're going to need a 10 yen coin. You can begin playing Kokkuri-san from 2 people. Upon placing your forefinger on the coin, you ask for Kokkuri-san to come forth and ask for it to go to yes once it's there. Kokkuri-san, Kokkuri-san, どうぞおいでください。もしおいでになられましたら、はいへお進みください。The 10 yen coin will then point to the different letters and answer any questions you may have. After each question, you ask for it to move to the torii gate before asking a new question, and also ask it to go there before ending the game and thanking it. This was also used as a form of fortune-telling for those that believe that they can communicate with the kitsune or fox, which are believed to be messengers of God. Now, I'm pretty sure all of you see some similarities with this and the Ouija board, and you're not wrong. But unlike the origins of the Ouija board, which I won't get into here, Kokkuri-san has its roots in table turning, which was a type of seance that began in Europe and America in the 1800s. Table turning is also known as table tapping, table tipping, or table tilting. Participants sit around a table, place their hands on it, and wait for rotations. The table was made to serve as a means of communicating with the spirits. The alphabet would be slowly spoken aloud, and the table will tilt at the appropriate letter, thus spelling out words and sentences. According to philosopher Enryo Inoue, the idea crossed over to Japan around 1884 in the Meiji period when American sailors landed in the country. At that time, tables weren't present in every household yet, so they used something else in its place. They attached 3 bamboo legs on what's called an ohitsu, a container used to put cooked rice into. It would tip over from one side to the other, making a nodding movement. In Japanese, this movement is called kokkuri, and this is how the name originated. After this, the kanji for fox, dog, and raccoon were used to write out Kokkuri-san. For adults, Kokkuri-san was nothing more than a game they might dabble in while having a few drinks. But for kids, it was something entirely different. This stemmed from a popular cartoon that was airing at the time called Ushiro no Hyakutaro, or Hyakutaro Behind You. It was originally a comic series drawn by Jiro Tsunoda and revolved around a middle school boy called Ichitaro who experiences a series of supernatural events and his father who studies paranormal activities. When Ichitaro's life comes in danger, his guardian angel called Hyakutaro with long red hair comes in to save him. There is also a dog called Zero that can teleport and communicate with Ichitaro telepathically, helping him to solve these mysterious cases. One of their very first episodes on TV involved Ichitaro's teacher becoming possessed by a fox spirit and one of the female students dying after the students played Kokkuri-san during class. The teacher didn't believe in any ghosts or spirits and dared the students to prove to him that they existed. Although Ichitaro's father had warned him never to play the game as it was dangerous, he went against his better judgment and did so. This was what sparked students all across Japan to try their hand at the game, and many of them gathered around during break time and after school to play. No one expected this to turn into a huge social problem that resulted in the game being banned from every single school. There were numerous students who fainted during the game and rushed to the hospital, others who began acting erratically as if possessed by fox spirits and the like. There were students who experienced certain types of strokes, panic attacks, and overall symptoms of group hysteria. It was taken up by the media and spoken about on every news station and magazines, which sparked an even stronger magnetic pull for students to continue acting on their dark curiosities. The parents felt differently, however, and as a result, the education board had to ban Kokkuri-san from all schools in the nation. Furthermore, all books, magazines, and TV shows targeted for young audiences were banned from publishing any stories about it. 7 rules that should be followed when playing. Number 1. Never play alone. Number 2. Do not joke around or make fun of the game while you're playing. Number 3. Do not get scared during the game or begin playing with an emotionally or mentally unstable state. Number 4. Do not take your finger off of the 10-yen coin until you end the game. Number 5. If the spirit doesn't want to end the game by going back to the torii gate, you must continue playing until they do so. Number 6. Do not end the game prematurely. Number 7. Do not ask questions regarding the spirit. Rules 1 through 6 are simple and easy to understand, but what does the 7th rule mean? Here are a few examples of what not to ask while playing. Number 1. Who are you? Number 2. What's your name? Number 3. What do you like? These types of questions could cause the players to feel emotional for the spirit. For example, if the spirit says that they died due to an accident or were killed, someone might feel sorry for them or wonder if they could help the spirit in any way, which might lead to an emotional soft spot that the spirit can use to its advantage to possess the individual. People who play Kokkuri-san are not the same as priests who are highly trained with dealing with spirits and possessions. They are common individuals like you and me, and as a result, the spirits that are called during this game are those of animals or of low-grade spirits. These spirits might present themselves as a fox, which in Japan are believed to be messengers of God. At the time, there were many observations where individuals believed their friend had become possessed by what seemed like fox spirits. However, there are some theories out there that the possessions were actually caused by these low-grade spirits that pretend to be of higher spiritual level than what they actually are. If, by chance, the spirit that was summoned was evil, then there's no saying what the consequences will be if it possessed you. So, for these reasons, if you dare to play the game, please refrain from asking it personal questions. Finally, once you're done playing, rip the paper into 48 pieces before you throw it away and use the 10-yen coin within 3 days after playing. Is Kokkuri-san real or is it fake? Have people actually experienced something paranormal or can it be explained scientifically? There was a TV show in Japan that did an experiment to try to answer these questions. They split a bunch of elementary students into 2 groups, those that believed that Kokkuri-san was real and those that didn't. What happened was fascinating. The 10-yen coin ended up moving when the group that believed in it played. However, it didn't move when the non-believers played the game. In addition, questions about Japanese cities were answered correctly, while questions asked in English or about American history were not answered at all. In other words, questions that were outside of the students' knowledge were not answered. Their eye movements were also recorded, and once analyzed, the children were found to be looking for the letters to spell out the answers from the moment they heard the question. What was concluded from this experiment were that two specific human reflexes were the cause of the coin's movements, and not spirits. The first is anticipation. When a question is asked, an individual is already subconsciously formulating an answer within themselves. The second is the ideomotor phenomenon. This is a psychological phenomenon wherein a subject makes motions unconsciously. It's a process whereby a thought or mental image brings about an automatic muscular reaction, often of minuscule degree and potentially outside of the awareness of the subject. Even though it may be a tiny movement for just one person, when that is multiplied by several people who are playing the game, it becomes strong enough to move a coin. After this, the coin begins to move to what their subconscious answer is to the question. It is well known that people act in ways that parallel their belief systems. Kokkuri-san is made in a way that makes players believe that something spiritual will occur. Rules that don't allow one to take their fingers off the coin or to not ask certain types of questions brings about a sense of danger, fear, and anxiety. When the coin begins to move due to the two reflexes just mentioned, it brings about a powerful form of autosuggestion where the individual believes that they've actually called forth a spirit. Believing this to be true, they begin to act in a way that reflects the presence of a ghost. It is said that this is especially pronounced in younger children who aren't fully matured emotionally and psychologically. But how do you explain multiple people acting erratically at once? This is where the beauty of being a human being comes into play. People are naturally empathetic beings. We can read the atmosphere. We have the capacity to understand and feel what another person is experiencing. When you witness something out of the ordinary happening, it will eventually make you feel the same way too. There are a couple of examples where this can be seen clearly. Number 1. Students who were just watching but not playing began to say that they heard strange voices too. Number 2. When one student began to feel ill, other students also began to feel ill. In one such case, 18 students were taken to the hospital. The power of believing can be extremely powerful. There is no stronger example of this than what has been witnessed through Kokkuri-san. However, it is also true that there have been cases where science was unable to explain what had occurred. So, all in all, I guess we still don't really know whether all of this is caused by spirits or not. I, for one, am a firm believer in science, but also in the paranormal. It's enough to deter me from dabbling in anything like this because the risks are too great in my opinion. Let me know what you believe when it comes to Kokkuri-san or the Ouija board. And if you have any experiences of your own, make sure to share it with us in the comments below. I'm sure this is what all of you have been waiting for, some true horrifying stories that individuals have experienced while playing Kokkuri-san. Let's get right into it. This happened when I was in lower elementary school. I had many friends, and back then it was a normal occurrence for some of them to be at my house when I arrived home from school. Amongst them was a friend who had an older brother who was really into the paranormal and the occult. He would always tell us scary stories. That day, he told us a story about how a group of students fainted after playing Kokkuri-san at school. It was then that another one of my friends came up with the brilliant idea to play it that night. They all went home to eat dinner and take a bath before gathering again at my place to play. When everyone was there, we made our way to my bedroom on the second floor. We all decided to ask one question each and summoned Kokkuri-san. Nothing happened. We tried calling out for the spirit to come another 2-3 times, but the 10 yen didn't budge. Feeling a bit deflated, we all decided to try one more time before giving up. It was then that the 10 yen coin slowly started to move towards yes. We all nervously looked at each other, communicating with our eyes to see if any of us were moving it, but none of us were. We said that each of us would be asking it a question, and again, it moved to yes. We asked where one of our lost items were, what the weather would be like tomorrow, etc. All of these mundane questions lightened the atmosphere, and we had all started to take it lightheartedly, assuming that one of us was moving the coin on purpose. Things drastically changed after the last question, though. It spelled out ko-ro-su, which means I'm going to kill you. And right after it, there was a big earthquake. We all jumped up scared and ran downstairs to where my parents were, crying. Surprised, they asked us what was going on. Even when we tried to explain that we became afraid because of the earthquake, they had no idea what we were talking about. Because, well, there was no earthquake. We immediately thought it was because of Kokkuri-san. Even though we weren't done with it, we ripped the paper to pieces and threw it away. I don't know if that was the right thing to do, but that was the only solution we could come up with. Now we're all grown up and nothing has happened to us, but we make sure to tell our children to never play the game. When I was in high school, I decided to play Kokkuri-san by myself. At that time, I wasn't going to school and, being bored of staying home by myself, I decided to try to bring a bit of excitement to my day. I took out a piece of paper and upon doing some research online, proceeded to write the necessary words on it. The sun was still high in the sky, but it didn't prevent me from getting a bit scared while I was writing the letters down on the paper, so I put on a CD to lighten the mood. I've listened to that same CD many times before without any problems, but on this particular occasion, it would stop playing and would continue to skip. I was already half crying by the time I was ready to start playing. I put the 10 yen on the torii gate, placed my forefinger on it, and said, "Kokkuri-san, Kokkuri-san, どうぞおいでください。おいでになられたら、はい。進んでください." I was only touching the coin lightly, but it began to move smoothly towards yes. I was frozen in place at the fact that the coin actually moved. I hadn't asked it a question yet when the coin began to move again and spelled out, "I'm outside your house." As soon as the last word spelled out, I felt a shiver and accidentally let go of the coin. I knew I wasn't supposed to let go until I ended the game properly and read online that something terrifying could happen if you let go of it prematurely. I began to cry. The coin continued to move and spelled out the following sentences. "I'm in your house. I'm at the entrance. I'm in the hallway. I'm outside your bedroom. I'm inside your bedroom. I'm behind you." I felt a presence behind me. I could feel its mouth closing in on my ears and then strong breaths of air. It smelled like dog's breath, and it was at this point that I fainted. An hour had gone by when I finally came to, but it felt like I was out for much longer than that. For a split second I thought I had dreamt everything, but then I saw the piece of paper, and then the 10-yen coin. I didn't feel the presence anymore, and the horrid smell was gone, so I quickly ripped up the piece of paper and got rid of the coin. I knew I hadn't asked for Kokkuri-san to leave yet, but I only pondered for a split second whether or not to end the game right then and there because I was scared to wait for the coin to move again. I didn't want them sitting near me. The rest of the day went by peacefully. I didn't have any nightmares at night. Nothing happened to myself nor to my family, and because I was still scared, I told myself that I really did dream everything up. But that was far from the truth. It all began the following day. We didn't have any pets, but my family started to complain about a smell emanating around the house, that of a dirty, unwashed dog. They also mentioned seeing a shadow of a mid-sized dog in their rooms. I couldn't see anything, but the rest of my family did, and we all decided to put a mound of salt in every corner of each room. We did it to make ourselves feel better and to hold on to hope that we would stop seeing the shadows. After a while, though, the smell and the shadows reappeared, but something was different. The smell was coming from behind me, and my family would see the shadows around me. I was terrified and broke down in front of them. They asked me what was going on, but I couldn't bring myself to tell them that I had played Kokkuri-san. I knew I had to end this somehow, so I decided to do it again to get it to leave the house. Once again, I did it by myself. I put the 10-yen coin at the torii gate and began. The coin moved to yes, signifying that it was there. I swallowed hard, doing my best not to scream and let go, and said, "Kokkuri-san, Kokkuri-san, okaeri kudasai." The coin slowly moved and stopped at no. I apologized for the other day and asked for it to go back. It replied, no. I kept apologizing and asked for it to leave, but it continuously went to no. Not knowing what else to do, I asked what I should do in order for it to leave, to which it replied, "I'll leave once you jump." We were living on the 10th floor of an apartment complex at this time, and my bedroom was small, but I had a window. I thought, if I jump out of this window, it's going to leave us alone. I had never thought of harming myself prior to this, but this was the only thought in my mind at this point. Anything to make it leave. I walked slowly towards the window, unlocked it, and slid it open. I peeked down below, and then I smelled it again. A strong stench of dog's breath, and again, panting in my ears. I need to jump. I leaned forward out of the window when suddenly the door to my room opened and my dad rushed in. He ran to me and caught me before I fell out the window to my death. I was in shock and was unable to move when he noticed the piece of paper on the ground. He yelled, "Go home! I will not allow you to take my daughter!" And he ripped up the paper. Just then, what looked like black smoke appeared in my room and spiraled up towards the ceiling, then straight out the window, disappearing into the distance. My dad told me later that he apparently played Kokkuri-san when he was a kid and, like me, couldn't get it to leave. That was when his mum, my grandmother, told it to leave while ripping up the paper, ending whatever mayhem was happening in their household at the time. I don't know if this was the best way to end this game. Maybe, depending on the situation, it could have ended up much worse, but in my case, it worked. We haven't had any smells or shadows come back. As I've been writing this, the light in my room has been flickering on and off. I've heard a few creaks and scratches too, so it's probably a story that I shouldn't repeat and one I should try to forget. For those of you who have read my story until the end, I recommend for you to forget it as soon as possible. More than 20 years ago, in the summer of 1989, I was in high school and went to a swim camp by the beach for 2 nights and 3 days. The dorm was surrounded by a pine tree forest which blocked out all sounds from the beach and the traffic on the road. It made one hesitate to step foot outside after dark. Telling ghost stories went hand in hand in a place like this. We heard stories of fallen soldiers and of abandoned trains running on the tracks. There were also stories of bodies being washed up on the shore because of the fast currents. All in all, this place was creepy as hell. On one of the nights that we were there, one of our friends said, "Let's play Kokkuri-san. I'm sure there's a spirit around here." I agreed to go along with it. We took out a piece of paper and wrote down the letters and decided to use a pencil instead of a 10-yen coin. It was just the 2 of us actually playing, but there were 10 others in the room watching us. Once the pencil began to move, we asked for its gender, and it went to male. We asked its age, and it said 56. Then we asked, "How did you die?" And it spelled out, "I was murdered." The pencil was moving so smoothly that I thought my friend was moving it. I asked her to stop because it was scaring me, but she countered that she thought I was the one that was moving it. As soon as that came to light, everyone started freaking out. We were overcome with a sudden sense of dread, so we asked if we could stop. The response, of course, was no. No matter how many times we asked, the answer was always in the negative. We couldn't just let go because we were scared we might become possessed, so my friend finally asked, "What can we do to stop?" It replied, "Die." Half crying, my friend asked again if we could stop the game, and it finally told us to rip the paper into 8 pieces and to bury it under a pine tree. We both thanked it and ended the game. We ripped the paper into 8 pieces and all of us crept out to bury it under the rightmost tree. For good measure, we all put our hands together to pray and thank the spirit. We swore to one another that this wasn't a game to be played for fun and to never do it again. Thankfully, nothing happened that night. The next day was the last day of swim camp and the start of our summer break. We all slowly began to forget any of this ever happened, and none of us spoke about it again. 6 years later, I was back at the swim camp as a part-time swim coach, this time for an entire week. The pitch dark of the night didn't scare me as much as it used to, I guess because my mindset was a lot different. I was there for work after all, and not as a student whose main purpose was to have fun with friends than to swim. I'd completely forgotten about our experience there years ago. After the last group of students arrived, I was walking around with another coach to make sure everything was in order. It was already time for lights out, so everything was dark. That's when we came across one of the female students crying on a bed by the window. Upon asking her what was wrong, she told us she was scared because there was a man standing under a pine tree. The other coach looked out but didn't see anyone. When I heard what the students said, everything came flooding back. I asked the student which tree she saw the man under, and she pointed to the pine tree on the very right of the forest. It was where we had buried the paper. At that moment, I knew that the spirit we had communicated with was real and was actually still there.